The taxpayers expense.
You will not use individuals' names. I've made
Former-
that quite clear to you.
Former city manager. I apologize for using the person's name. But so I think people ought to be at that, and I can start to see why this the tax Tea Party exists when we look at this stuff. I mean, I was talking to somebody about over there by New Horizon, Goodwill, and that circle there, and I come to find out that staff signed some kind of a development agreement with the developer before it came to the council, and that one of the property owners there was excluded from knowing about that development because he wasn't, I guess, the resident that lived there but owned the property, and the city gave the excuse, well, we just didn't, you weren't a resident. I mean, I think that's absurd. That if you're going to put in city expenditures that impact property owners, that you don't notify all the property owners. I have a problem with taxpayers bailing out developers and this when we could have market rate housing and going into TIF and things like. I just don't know. We have a 5-0 vote up here. I'm gonna start. Well, you're short one tonight, so you have a 4-0 vote. I think what citizens need to do is come to your dinner meeting prior to this. What is it? That's 6:30 to 7, where I assume the real discussion takes place. I don't know, but I think that the other councils used to have some real open discussion up here so the citizens could understand what their government was up to.
Your time's up.
Thank you once again.
It's always a pleasure.
We do it on Wednesday night, Inside.
Your time is up.
Thank you once again. I actually wasn't planning on coming to visitor presentations, but the past discussion about the second reading, I felt I needed to. I'm Diana Longry, 1771 Burr Street, up here as a citizen with regard to this. I do think it is important that if you're going to have a second reading, that you adhere to that policy, because that is the policy that citizens have come to expect, that if there's going to be a new ordinance on the books, that they have that opportunity during that second reading, that if they didn't know about it being on the agenda this first time, and they just heard about it this first time watching it on TV, that they had a chance then with the second reading to be able to give their comments to their council. And so I do thank the council member, no name said, who of course brought this up. However, it is equally an injustice that if you're going to have the second reading, that it's on the consent agenda. Because how often does something get taken off the consent agenda? And since the consent agenda isn't even read anymore, so that anybody knows what is on the consent agenda, I think putting a second reading of an ordinance before it becomes law on the consent agenda is also a disservice. How much time do I have left?
3 minutes.
Okay. And I do want to thank you for clarifying that some of the information I had previously was not germane to the agenda item about the tourist cabin site. So I was wondering if I had some other additional information just regarding the background on that, if that would be germane to city business, and I can bring that up at visitor presentations at this time.
I don't see why not.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I think has to be considered when looking at what is to be done or how a deal is structured with regard to the tourist cabin site is that I see that the dilemma that was there a year and a half ago is still the dilemma that is there today. The tax records indicate that the property valuation is $1.6 million. And your documentation one time says that Mr. Miller is the fee owner, but sometimes Highland Bank is the fee owner. I think, again, if you go back and look at the documents, which I provided to the council a year ago, that in